Welcome to Defiance of Silence. I'm Valerie, your host, a veteran, nurse, and a survivor. This is a space for sacred witnessing, for stories often carried quietly, and for the people who hold them, for survivors, healers, and witnesses. Here we stand against the silence that isolates and honor the silence that allows us to truly be heard. Some episodes in this season will focus on sexual trauma and forensic realities. Others will explore moral injury, grief, and the cost of caring deeply in a world that can wound. You're invited to listen at your own pace, pause when you need to, and take what serves you and leave the rest. A gentle note before we begin. This podcast includes conversations about trauma and abuse. Please listen with care and honor your well-being. Thank you for being here and witnessing today's conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Defiance of Silence, a Sacred Witness podcast. I am excited for you to meet my guest, Dr. Jason Piefer, today. I have known Dr. Piefer for about 11 years, and he is a leader in our community and in our hospital and in our OR. And I just wanted to share with you, before he's a surgeon, he's a husband, a father, and one of those rare humans that can hold both gravity and humor in the same breath. He spends his days putting bodies back together after life breaks them apart, and somehow manages to do this with gentleness, skill, and a wicked sense of humor. So he's known by many as a quiet superhero in scrubs. He's definitely led the OR with calm and coolness and humanity and deep respect for the people he serves. He is also the host of his very own podcast, Slice of Piefer, where medicine, life, and curiosity are met with honesty and heart. Welcome, Dr. Piefer.
Thank you so much for having me, Val. That was like way over the top awesome. Thanks for that intro.
Well, it's true.
And right back at you. I mean, you know that I love you, and that how that just being able to get to work with you, have fun with you, going out and, you know, our dance parties and whatnot for the holidays and whatnot.
Yes.
So I think, I think the world of you. I think it's just such a blessing to get to be here. And I am a huge advocate for what you're doing. I think it is amazing. I love what you're doing. So
thank you so much for that. And I absolutely adore you too. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you because we have actually been on a podcast together before, because I got to come on your show. And that was a real privilege and an honor, but our conversation really sparked something in my mind that I think needed to be addressed. And, starting this podcast, it was really talking about sexual trauma and things like that. And I have realized that there are bigger conversations to be had. And one of them that we started to touch on when we spoke before was about vicarious trauma and healthcare, and what healthcare providers aren't able to talk about. Like, where do we put this stuff? So that kind of just brushed the surface and got my mind spinning a little bit, like, where could this conversation go? So I'm really thankful that you agreed to come on, because there's so much to talk about. And I love talking about love. That's one of my favorite things. And I know you like to talk about that too. So we are definitely going to talk about that. But before we get started, witnesses, we're just going to take a moment and ground ourselves so we can be present for this conversation. So wherever you are, if you feel comfortable, if that feels good for you, close your eyes. Just take a moment to think about right where you are. You don't have anywhere to be. We have nothing to do. We're just going to stay present and listen to this conversation. Listen to some sounds. What do you hear in your environment? Maybe tap your fingers together. And when you're ready, open your eyes and let's get started. Okay, so first, I just want to say, when people hear, orthopedic trauma or orthopedic trauma surgeon, I imagine that they probably think of like all this adrenaline and chaos and how it must be so exciting. And those things might be there. But more than anything, it's very actually calm, calculated. You have to make very hard decisions, calculated decisions in a cool manner. And I've witnessed you do that many, many times. But can you just tell us, like, what does a day in the life of an orthopedic surgeon look like?
Sure. So I am blessed to get to do what I do. I have really fallen into a job that, and not just a job, but a calling that I love. And I love what I do. We get up early, we take care of patients, we a typical surgical day for me starts with surgery at 7:30, but that oftentimes means that I'm waking up early in the morning, getting to the hospital early, seeing patients early, and going through to do, whether it's 2 surgeries or 10 surgeries. We're replacing joints, doing rotator cuff repairs, fixing ACLs, dealing with trauma, folks who've fallen off ladders and fallen downstairs, and motorcycle wrecks. And we get to do all that stuff in the same day that I sometimes get to go do a podcast as well. So that's kind of cool. I think that, um, in addition to that, getting to go home and have an amazing wife, 3 amazing kids, like it's a blessing to have all of these great things that I get to be a part of. And so I definitely consider myself blessed.
I love your humility in that. And you segued perfectly into my next question. So when you have a hard day where maybe you did see some things or had to experience some chaos or some stress, and you do go home, how do you leave that at the door? Like, do you have something that works for you to go home and meet the Dr. Mrs. Piefer, which is, she's amazing. I can say that firsthand because I met her, but
She is awesome. Hi, Chrissy. The so it is, there is this part of medicine where you have these very high level experiences and very difficult experiences, but you have to be able um, to kind of rapidly process those. And it's not really fair to your wife and your kids to make them the recipients of some of the difficulties. And so I think that when there are challenges that are very difficult, oftentimes writing about them, taking a few moments to either pray or just to reflect on those things is very important, because when you're in that moment, there are these things that you're getting an opportunity to participate where you really are having making life altering decisions. And there's always a little voice like, did I do the right thing? Is this person going to be okay? Right? Or how bad would I feel if my 17-year-old was in a motorcycle wreck and thrown 20 feet off of a motorcycle going 65 miles an hour? Right? Like that, those are difficult pieces to process. And having either the mentors or the friends or the places where you can leave that, and all of it's part of you, right? You can't just detach completely, because we've talked about that detachment before. You can't, it becomes a part of you, but being able to own it, process it, and move forward without having it become a burden for everyone else around you is very, can be a challenge, but it also, when you develop the skill, can be super rewarding and very healing.
yeah, I would agree. I think that goes for any kind of role in healthcare because we see stuff and do stuff to people in the name of taking care of them that is kind of messed up. Like, yes, I'm going to break this part of your leg so we can fix overall, do what's best for you in the long run, but maybe not what you want. And those are hard decisions to make. So carrying that home, I could see how that would be incredibly stressful. But until you've had the practice of having some sort of ritual to let that go. I know there were years where I just came home and it all just came out on the family, And so those are things that are unavoidable unless you really exercise that muscle. And
Right.
but also don't just shove it away and numb it out either. I think there's two sides to that coin.
Right.
I can't take it out on my family, so I'm just going to numb it out and not think about it, but ultimately that starts to bleed over into the rest of the parts of your life.
Right. I
Yeah.
agree. And I think that becomes it's really a skill. It's not right. This is not something that you're born with. If you leave the hospital, or if you leave, even a situation feeling, down, having imposter syndrome, negative thoughts that are just like invading, right? Those things, they will weigh you down. And if you try to compartmentalize them, eventually that pressure is going to build enough that you're not going to be able to tolerate it. And so I think being able to share in a healthy way with your family so that you're not completely detached is important. But I think having that outlet, whether that's through support systems, through your church, through a family member, whether you have counselors or folks that you speak with, life coaches, all of those different options are great pieces where even something simple like a quick text message to a close friend, like, man, today was really tough, can even be enough to kind of flip the switch to say, okay, I'm not alone, right?
Yeah.
No, I've got somebody. And if I need
Yeah.
to wait 15 minutes to walk in the house so that I can process this with somebody, I can do it, you know?
Yeah, that's powerful. And also just knowing like, yeah, getting it off the loop, knowing that your body keeps the score. We talk about this all the time on this particular podcast, but the
Yes.
body keeps the score and it remembers those things. So when you don't give it time to process and move through whatever it is, like the way you just described, then it gets stuck on that loop. And then that's when you lay awake and go, did I do the right thing? Did I cause harm? And should I be doing this? That whole imposter syndrome thing just comes in. I think that can attack anybody, no matter what your profession is. But I know that the pressure's on when you're a surgeon. And I've observed this for all the years I've worked in the OR. Like, you guys have a really hard job and you make it look easy. And that's, I think, why a lot of times surgeons, from a staff perspective, we just see like, oh, he's being aggravated about this or that. I mean, I've personally witnessed this many times, and until you have to make those decisions that you have to make as a physician, as a surgeon, it's hard for me to agree and come in line with anybody saying that a surgeon is doing a certain thing when you don't have to make those calls. The pressure's on for you. And it's something that I can't take personal. If things aren't going well in the room, there's kind of like, there's just a knowing. And if you have a really good team and a strong leader, which you are, we can follow your lead and everybody stays calm. And I think that's really
Yeah.
important too. That makes your day go a lot better. But I did want to ask you, being in the profession that you're in and the calling that you have, what do you know about the human spirit? Like what has changed for you in taking care of people? Has it changed the way that you see people by doing this job?
No, I mean, if anything, it's just enhanced my love for people that we get to work with and that we get the ability to help take care of, because the amount of trust that a patient puts into the hands of the doctor, oftentimes on their worst day, right? Especially if we're talking about trauma, the amount of trust that they put into for the nurses, for the staff, the hospital, right? I mean, if somebody's coming in off of a motorcycle with multiple extremities injured, you know, they don't have a choice. They just have to be there, and you have to trust that somebody is going to do the right thing for you. And so what I see over and over and over again are people striving to get better. They're striving to heal, they're striving to recover, they're finding that piece that drives them to move forward. And I love that. And I love that I get to see it. And I always say that the easy part's done when I'm done. The hard part is now you recovering. And there's a big parallel, I think, from an orthopedic recovery standpoint and a spiritual trauma recovery standpoint, right? Like, it doesn't happen like this. And if somebody told you, hey, it's going to be a year before I can get back to doing the activities that I love to do, right? We just live in a world where people want things done now, right? And if you've had sexual trauma, emotional trauma, physical trauma, I mean, all of those things, the idea like that I should be better this week. Like, I talked to my coach and I went and saw I had an hour-long session with a psychiatrist, and I'm not better, right?
Right.
Not
Right.
that's not how it can work. It's not how it works for a broken wrist. It's not how it works for a broken heart. I mean, if you said, hey, it's going to be a year, it's going to be 2 years, it's going to be 5 years, or the scars that happen from surgery, the scars that happen from your injury are going to be with you forever.
Yep.
You can function, you can hopefully do things at 100%, but you're always going to know when you look at your wrist that you broke, that something was broken. And I think that piece is how, it's an interesting parallel way to look at the other emotional traumas and physical traumas that people go through, that you're never not going to see the scar.
Mm.
There's always going to be a mark from those things that happened to you, but that doesn't mean that your scars define you. That doesn't mean that your scars are things that you have to say, I'm disabled forever. And it also doesn't mean that you have to live in silence over the things that bother you. And I think that's the beauty of what I love about you and about this podcast is that I am a huge believer that silence is a weapon against healing, right? That feeling that you're alone, that feeling that I can't talk to somebody, that feeling like that is absolutely fighting against you getting better. That's why it's so great to go to the physical therapy, offices, right? Where you see 10 other people recovering from their total knee and you say, oh man, they're struggling too. Or check out how good that guy's doing, right? And I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of a lot of the trauma you're talking about, right? Because that's not fair. But the reality is when you feel like you're alone, the walls build up, the idea that you can't that you're the only one, right? It leads you towards hopelessness as opposed to towards that feeling of hope and movement forward. And I think that's the beauty of what you're doing because you're giving people an ability to say, I'm not alone, right? Here's another person who's going through something similar, maybe not exactly the same, but similar to what I've been through. And they're making it. They're not perfect, but they're making it. They have scars, but they're making it. And I think that piece is beautiful.
Wow. You said so many things in there that I was just shaking my head this whole time. I'm a little dizzy. You said so many things that are so important for people to hear. And it's not about comparison and about saying like my trauma is worse than your trauma or this was a different kind of trauma. And sometimes you have multiple types of trauma at once. Like you brought up, if you get in a motorcycle crash or even if you just fell off a skateboard or whatever it was, there was a harm to your body, an insult, an injury to your being, to your physical being, that sometimes it can take a long time for that to heal. And there's also an emotional side to it. There's also financial, even like something as small as, falling off a ladder and twisting your ankle and having to have your tendons repaired can turn into a financial burden. It can turn into all kinds of things that just cascade. And I love that you treat people as a whole person. And it's amazing to have a physician in your corner that doesn't just do the surgery and fix the bone and do the things and says, okay, I don't need to see you anymore. Bye. But you're I can't say that word, championing your patients to take ownership in their healing and also encouraging them. So they look forward to coming to see you. And there's not a day that goes by that I could ever imagine having my body broken because I see it so much. And I say there's not a day that goes by because we work in the OR. So of course we see that. And I just am so thankful that I do have the body that I have and it can take care of it, but you don't know what's coming. And that can provide, there's a lot of unknowns too with that. But our capacity as humans to carry that trauma and isolate ourselves, it's incredible to me how long we can get away with doing that before our body starts to say like, you know what, I've had enough. I think I'm going to start breaking down on all other levels for you. And you have to pay attention to it. And that's why we're sitting here having this conversation, because so many people just need to hear like, yeah, that sucked. And that happened to me too. And it's not about comparing stories or saying I had it worse than you or you had it worse than me. But like you said, like, I love that, just looking over at the next person who had their total knee done and going, oh yeah. And there's like a knowing in your eyes, like, yeah, this sucks and this hurts and it's going to be better. And you've got someone that's maybe a few weeks ahead of you going, yeah, I remember that. And you're going to be okay. Like, this is going to be okay. So I think that's really beautiful that you empower your patients to do that. And I also know that sometimes these things can be really dramatic and traumatic, even as a healthcare provider. So if you're open to sharing, has there ever been anything or a patient that you've taken care of or anything that you've seen that really affected you in a way deeply that was a little more difficult for you to process?
Sure. I mean, there's just in life and in the operating room, we have people who don't make it, right? We have people who have major injuries and they don't survive. And that is when you've done everything you can do and given everything that you've got to try to get somebody there, and then the expectation is now you've got to do it for another person, right? It's like when we take call, we're on call for 24 hours straight, and you have a patient and you've really done everything, the entire team. I mean, you've been in those big traumas where it's just all hands on deck to try to get things done. And as the orthopedic surgeon, we're stabilizing other things that tend to be less life threatening anyway. But especially when you see people in positions where they really, for me, where I feel like they shouldn't be, like it's hard to see a teenager who's had a major trauma and not see my own kid laying there.
Right.
Hard for
Right.
me to see somebody who, who has a hip fracture that should survive, end up with some major complication that ultimately costs them their life, and not see my own dad, in that person.
Right.
And I think those pieces, when you can put yourself in the shoes of those folks, and those are the hardest things. I mean, I can tell you probably, well, I'll tell you probably the most tragic story that I had without trying to do, and this didn't have to do with the patient. This was when I kind of questioned everything. I questioned everything about what I wanted to do. And we were in residency. We had a significant, I mean, we worked hard. We worked really hard. Like they had to limit us to working 80 hours a week. That
Mm.
was how hard we worked. So, and when I started, we worked even more than that. And so you were giving everything you had, but you can imagine the stress that has on your family, the stress that has on your life outside of medicine. Um, and we did that really not nonstop, but a lot of 5 years. And we had a resident who was a couple years ahead of me. He was operating, and he got a phone call, and or he didn't get a phone call. He got a text message that said, "We love you," from his wife, talking about her and their newborn child.
Oh
Right.
no.
And he operated for another 3 hours, got home late at night, and I'm getting home similar time. Turn on the TV, on the news, his car is on the news. And he got home, and his wife had, in postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, had taken her
Mm.
life and the baby's life.
Mm.
And he makes me, and
Yeah.
and he calls the police, wraps them both in his arms. The police get there and they arrest him.
Mm.
So at that moment, I was like, if this is the price, if this is the cost of what I'm doing, I don't know if I can keep going.
Yeah.
And that piece is, I mean, I love him to death. He's an amazing guy. I can't imagine how he made it through those things. How he made it through that. I can't imagine the level of depression and psychosis that his wife at the time was
Yeah.
going through to make that kind of a decision. But I know that that's not a rational decision, right? That's not something that somebody who's in their right mind would do. But people suffer from postpartum depression all the time, and to not recognize it is terrible. But for me, I would say probably in my career, that was maybe, if I was going to identify the hardest moment, um, that may have been the hardest moment. It was a moment that I thought as a second year resident that I might not ever not keep going with living, but not keep going with this career.
Right.
Because I was like,
Right.
if this is what it comes to, if this is where I'm going to be, then I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That is tough. And again, the silence that comes with that, like people, there's lots of awareness that needs to be drawn around that as well. I mean, I'm sorry for your friend and what he went through for sure, but that's a pivotal moment where you have to decide what's the cost. And I think that's huge. And I know for myself, being a healthcare worker, like there's just things that we see that it's not like you want to go home and say, yeah, I saw this today, XYZ, whatever it is. And it's really hard to have a safe place to put that. So when you're a nurse or you're a physician, you have other nurses you can text or call and say, like, this is what happened. And there's a knowing, because you don't have to explain too much detail. Like, yeah, this is what happened, and it wasn't okay. And like you were saying, when a patient is on the table and seeing what they're going through, I think about their family. I think about, what would I be feeling if that was my spouse, child, mom, whoever on the table, and everyone's ignoring me in the lobby. So it's like, has anybody talked to the family? Like, I feel like those are important things that get missed sometimes, because we're so focused on, there's just so many layers of little traumas that happen when a patient has probably the worst day of their life, depending on what's happening. And I will never forget the first time. I was a fairly new nurse. I'd worked, a couple different, I think I did some home health and then some med surg, just kind of getting my, feet wet in the nursing world. And it was my first year in the ER. And we had a baby come that was, a coding, and the baby was 9 months old. And that's how old my daughter was.
Wow.
And in the moment, I did my job. And I had great mentors, and, but afterward, I just was completely out of sorts. And like, I just could not stop thinking about this baby for weeks and weeks, and the baby didn't make it, and I had to be there when the doctor told the mom the baby didn't make it. It chokes me up, but all of these things I just kind of shelved away, because I don't want to be the Debbie Downer that talks about this. And I was young enough in my career, and young in general, that I didn't know the importance of talking about it. And they kept saying, Will, we're going to have the fire department. He's going to debrief us. And I didn't want to participate, because I thought talking about it was going to make it worse. And I learned the hard way that not talking about it actually made it much worse. And
Right.
so it took me a long time to realize that I needed to process that and talk about it. And it's still something that when I think about, I'm like, man, I can't imagine her pain, all of the things that happened in that tragic situation. But I carry that with me to say it was a lesson to learn, like, nope, don't hold on to this. Like, I have to be able to put it in a safe place, whether that's another provider or a therapist or something like that, because, these are the realities of the work that we do. Right.
So now let me just tell you something that I think maybe what may resonate a little bit for everybody. And it's very interesting, because when I've heard this, I've always heard it kind of spoken about in terms of like donations, like giving money to people or something along those lines, or if somebody needed money. And so it's actually from a person who I know very well. His name is David Meltzer. So he says it, but I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit for him, for you guys, and for everybody, because it's just, as you were talking about, I was really thinking, right? Don't deny other people the gift of helping you, right? And so by remaining silent, like, there are so many people that are concerned that sharing these issues that they would share is going to burden someone else. It's going to cause more problems. It's just going to make me look like I'm a weakling. It's going to do all these different things, right? There's a million different excuses that can go through your head that are all negative thoughts. But by not asking for help, you actually are denying the people who would give you the gift of listening that ability. So you don't deny people that ability to give you that gift of being there for you, because that's a piece. There are so many people who want to help you, who want to listen, who want to be there for you, who want to say, hey, I've been through that and you're going to get through it. Right. And it's actually a gift that you as the person share with them by letting them help you, that if you look at it from the flip side, you kind of are denying them. You're not giving them that ability, because they never know, right? You're remaining silent, so they don't know that they could help you or where you're sitting. Because especially a lot of us are really good at that, right? A lot of us are really good at compartmentalizing things and not letting people know how bad things really are. When in reality, if we came up to somebody and said, hey, I'm really hurting, it may be the exact thing they need to be able to help you to get through what you're getting through, and for them to get through what they're getting through.
Yeah, that's powerful. And it's true. And that is 100% what it comes down to, is just not wanting to burden other people's or feel the shame of like, I need help. And I know, sharing my story openly, I can hold that space for someone now. And I can say, look, there's another side to this. And I think that that is powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us, for sure. So what do you do when your nervous system needs attention? So, you're in a tense situation and you can feel yourself kind of carrying things. Is there anything you do, particularly while you're working, that helps you get through those moments?
So I've written a little bit about this, but for me, it is, I mean, it very simply is that sort of recentering deep breath, what you did at the beginning. And what I found is that if you are disoriented, if you don't see where you're going, right? And we talk about this in the operating room with the arthroscope, right? So it can be a lot like tunnel vision when you're looking at that screen inside of a knee joint or a shoulder joint or inside of the belly or wherever. I don't operate in the belly, but for folks who do, um, you can get lost. And when you get lost, it's hard. The harder that you look, the more lost you get, right? You don't see the anatomic landmarks that are
Mm.
normal. You don't see the things that you're supposed to see. And so the temptation is to look closer, to zoom in closer, to focus on that super tight kind of screen, that circular screen that's up there. And what I tell everybody in the OR and what I try to do, take a breath, step back a little bit, look down at your hands, right? Because your hands will now reorient you to the position of the patient's body, the position of the camera, the position of where you're looking. And what you typically find is when you're lost, you're oriented in the wrong direction. You're looking in a different way. And so by looking down at your hands, you can reorient yourself and get where you need to be. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing, to step back. The other thing is, in the moment when I feel like, man, and some surgeons do this, they lose it, they get flustered, they elevate the volume. Anytime that you do that, the reflex for everyone else in the room is to back away, when what you need them to do is move in. And so by taking a breath and being quiet and lowering your voice, everyone has to move in to listen, and people will move in to help, and they will realize the gravity of what's happening if there's something is going wrong in the surgery, and they'll move in closer. And so I think that's huge, to sort of just let things calm, because it'll calm me too, right? Like if there's a bunch of blood that all of a sudden fills up a surgical field, right? To just quietly ask for a hemostat, quietly
Yeah.
ask for a lap sponge,
Yeah.
right? All of a sudden
Yeah.
people say, well, what's
What's
happening?
happening? Yeah,
Right.
what's happening?
Right? If you
Why are
turn
you
and
so
say,
calm?
"Turn down the music," right? Then
Yes, yes.
everything will change in the room,
So
and go from there.
100%, when a surgeon says turn the music down, everybody's like, what's happening? What do you need? I'm right
Right.
here. What can I do? Do I need to call for help? And I love how you just gave that analogy. Like, you have to, if you can stay regulated and calm, then everybody around you, we co-regulate with each other. And it's 100% true. And it's really hard as somebody who tries to stay regulated when the rest of the team is not. Like, that's an uphill battle, when everyone around you is acting a certain way. But I've just observed and kind of stepped back. And it's interesting that you mentioned the hands, because I don't know if you know this or not. Maybe you do. Just with anxiety in general and a grounding technique. When I am working with somebody or holding space with somebody, I've had some great coaches who've taught me some things. But when you are working with somebody who's getting really elevated or worked up, and you can't kind of reorient them to get centered, have them look at their hands. So you touch their hands and say, "Do you feel me touching your hands?" "Yes, I feel you. I feel you touching my hands." "Now look at your hands," and have them look at their own hands and say, "Do you see your hands?" "Yes, I see my hands." "Okay, now wiggle your fingers. Do you see your fingers? Can you touch your fingers together?" Those kinds of things really reorient them. And that's really stuck with me about the hands. And when I feel myself getting worked up, that's a trick that I use for myself. Is like, okay, I need to to look at my hands, and that kind of centers me back, like, okay, here I am and here we are. And that works. It really does work. I've worked hospice for a short time, a couple of years ago, and that's one thing we use with family members a lot. When you prepare them for the death is coming, you prepared them as much as you can, but nothing prepares you until the moment happens. You can tell them as much as you want, but when that moment happens, they're a lot of times they're scared or terrified. I've seen some very beautiful passings, and I've seen some families you think are solid rocks, and then their family member passes, and it's just too much. And so that hand trick works in that situation too. I don't want to say trick, like that sounds weird, but just to know that those are things that we don't need special tools, around. Like, we already have it inside of us, and we have it right here. We just need somebody to help draw that out. I think that shows a lot of love and compassion. And I know that's something that gets us through the work that we do. So humor actually is another way that we can use to regulate ourselves. And you are a lot of fun to work with, and there's a lot of humor. And some people can use humor to cover up things. I don't feel that about you at all. I think you just are hilarious, first of all. And your boss, Taylor, keeps you hopping. Hi, Taylor.
This is true.
And you have a great synergy about you in the OR. And I know people compete to try to get in your OR with you because it's just so much fun to work with you. But the thing that's beautiful about humor is that we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. And when it comes to healing, for me, humor has been a huge part. Like, I have to be able to laugh at myself to some degree. And I feel like that's really important. Has there ever been a time where, just for giggles, I'd like to ask you, has there ever been a time that you've just completely lost it, hysterically laughing when it seemed like an inappropriate time? Because that happens to me sometime when things are inappropriate. Humor is what I go to.
I love, I just, that whole, I think when I was a kid, somebody said, just smile and see how you start to feel, right? It was maybe there was, it sounds like a cat poster, but
Yeah.
but I was like, you can't help it. Like, when you're
Hang in there.
when you're with, right. When my 13-year-old is going crazy and I'm like, smile. She's like, shut up, dad,
Yeah.
but I think that for me, humor and like there's that levity is also probably in reality a very good tool for me to help deal with some of the more serious things. Right. And so I love it. I love making people smile. I love laughing. I love doing silly stuff. I did danced on Instagram. Like somebody said, do the, will you break it down for me? And
That was pretty hilarious.
they showed me the video for like 2 seconds. I was like, I don't know, remember what that was supposed to do. So then I just did random stuff. And with the random stuff, it looks completely, but you just can't take yourself too seriously. I think that there's a reality of life that we live in. And I think for some surgeons, they feel like I can't, I've got to be this super serious. I've got to be the pinned up and ready to go. And I'm, whether it's screaming and yelling or I've got my white coat and my tie and my stuff and I'm going to, right. But there's all those people. It's eventually, I hope, go home and laugh and have fun. Like, why deprive your friends and your colleagues of the ability to smile? And especially if you don't care about making fun of yourself a little bit, which I don't particularly care about, then it makes it so much easier. So to me, humor is more than a defense mechanism. It's just, it's a way to communicate life and love to other people. And sometimes when you really can, if you really hit something really good and they can't help but smile and laugh, right?
Yeah.
That's the piece that, even in the darkest moments, you can sometimes get somebody to at least smile. Like that just makes you feel so good, And so I think that it also shows people when they're in really, really dark places, right? And this is a saying that everybody hears a million times, but darkness can't drown out darkness. The only thing that can drown out the darkness is the light, right? And it doesn't take very much right? Like if you strike a match in a pitch black room, you're going to see the light.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be so hard because with psychological trauma, with medical and psychiatric issues, like it can be so hard to see the light, right? It can be so hard to see the light, but the light's there. It's somewhere, and there's somebody who can be the light for you, and you're the light for somebody else too. And that piece, I think, is, and for some people it's humor. For some people it's just giving somebody a hug. For sometimes, as a surgeon, sincerely thanking someone, right? Like gratitude for what folks do, right? I mean, like, we find it out as surgeons. Like, there aren't that many surgeons that tell people thank you and mean it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
true. That's true.
and that piece I think is sad, because if you don't recognize that there were 30, 40, 50 people who had touches to make this patient's life better and make my life better as the surgeon, right? Like, you should thank everybody. Write them all thank you notes,
Yeah.
So,
In your
um,
spare time. In your
right.
spare
But
time, write some thank you notes.
But the
But it is
reality is
important.
just spending the time to smile and thank somebody is very little that you do there, but I think it means a lot. And it's obviously doing it with sincerity, right?
Yeah.
People can tell if you're not being sincere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think it means a lot to the team when leaders can genuinely say, like, hey, thank you. Like, it's sad to say, but there aren't many days that go by where a lot of surgeons say a genuine thank you, because it's just an expected thing. Well, that's what we're getting paid for, and that's what they're there for. And I'm not saying, I'm not outing any particular surgeons where we work. I'm just saying in general, it seems like it's just such a fast paced go, go, go. And I don't know always that it's the intention. Like, I don't want to thank you. I think we just get so busy and we're just doing what we do that we don't take the time to smell the roses and have a little gratitude. And I think that that's something beautiful that you bring to this profession and to this atmosphere that we work in. I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful.
And I think that, I mean, the reality is that how much that circulating nurses and the scrub nurses and scrub techs and the anesthesia assistants and the anesthesiologists and the pre-op nurses and the post-op nurses and the nurses on the floor. I mean, like, you start to list all these people, and like, I mean, you can go all the way up to the CEO of the hospital, all the way down to I shouldn't say down, but all the way to anybody who's doing maintenance and cleaning and whatnot. Like, I mean, if you don't have the ability to smile at those people and recognize the role that they really play, right? Then to me, as a leader, you've lost touch, right? And you've lost that ability to understand what it means to have people working towards that common purpose. And so that's one of the things I talk about a lot also, is just when the pressure is building and building and building, the key as a leader, but the key also for your team, is to convert that pressure into understanding the purpose. Why are we here? What are we doing for these people? What are we doing for the team? Right? And when the purpose is the driver and the foundation, and that's that foundation of love that we've talked about so many times, like when you're willing the good of the patient and the team, and that's your purpose, then the pressure becomes very light, because I know what I'm doing is for a cause. It's for a good. It's to will the good, and it's to love somebody. And there's no amount of pressure that would stop me from loving my family. There's no amount of pressure that would stop me from loving you, from loving myself, from loving my team, from loving my patients. And then when that happens, when you have that foundation and that purpose, then the pressure becomes very, very easy to deal with. And that sounds a little crazy, but it is true.
No, love is crazy, and that's beautiful, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. The bottom line is, yeah, they're patients, but they're human beings first. And if what we're doing is motivated in love, and love isn't always romantic feelings, like people hear that, love is way deeper than that, and it's way more important than just romance. I'm talking about love and belonging. Like, as humans having this experience, like, we're wired for connection and for love and belonging. And we talk about that a lot. And when those connections get disrupted, it sometimes can take a little bit to overcome that. And I think it's beautiful that you bring that to your work, just that human aspect, and you're not just a robot and a machine that's just doing surgery. Like, you know, it feels like sometimes, because you do see a lot of patients and you do a lot of surgery. And so I think that's really beautiful. So it's like showing love to people that don't even know what you're doing. That's the fun part too. Like, how do you show up and love people when they don't even know that you're loving them, or they can't receive it maybe? And I've witnessed time and time again as a nurse, people don't always have the ability to receive the love that you're giving. And so it may come out in aggression towards the staff or whatever from the patient perspective or family member perspective. And when that used to send me through the roof, I'd be like, don't they understand that we're just caring about them? And I've realized in the past decade or so that they can't help it. They don't know what they don't know. And they're just scared a lot of times. It's just fear. And knowing that helps me to take a step back and really keep myself regulated so that I can help them stay regulated.
When the definition, right? The foundational definition of love for me is willing the good of the other without regard for anything you get in return. Right. If you will the good, which is an action, right? We talk about thinking about things but if you are actively trying to do what's best for the person without any regard for, they may never tell you thank you. They may never recognize what you did. They may never do that. They may never even know who you were, right? Ultimately, that family member who is never there. If you will the good without counting the cost, without counting the price, then that to me is what true love is for people. And I think it will free you. It frees me, right? If I'm free to love people and I'm not expecting anything back, well, then I never have a bad feeling about, I shouldn't say I've never had a bad feeling. If I do it that way, then if I do it that way, then there's never a moment that I say, well, did I love too much? Did I do too much for this person? Because I never expect anything back. Now, in all honesty, have I loved expecting things in return? 100%. So, but if you have that ability to try to put yourself in the space where you're doing it without expecting anything, then I think that you found what, for me, if I can do it, then I've found really the foundation of what I should be doing in life.
I think that's amazing. And you do a lot of speaking on leadership, and, you're a physician leader and just in general, just a leader in the human race, which I think is amazing. And so recently you've been doing some public speaking and taking on some other projects. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what's up for you next? What have you been doing?
So I've been really blessed. I mean, I got to do the podcast, which is kind of silly and fun, and people get to have pies at the end, and it has a silly name. And but in addition to being really passionate about orthopedics and taking care of patients, I have developed a really strong passion for really helping to empower leaders to establish environments where everybody can thrive. Right. And we talk about I've talked to nurses about this, right? To the nursing leadership at the hospital. If everybody moves and works harder and works faster for the surgeon who is miserable and angry and screaming and insulting people and throwing things, right? If that motivates people to move faster and to get more work done and to do things better, then you're going to end up sleeping in the bed you make for yourself, because they're going to continue to do it. And even the good ones are going to realize, if I want to get that second room, if I want to have the turnover be 20 minutes instead of 35, if I want to do those different things, what I have to do is I have to make people's lives miserable. Well, then now we all live in a miserable environment. And I think that there is so much more powerful way to establish an environment as a leader that's founded on that purpose, that's founded on that gratitude. And so I am trying to empower not only leaders, but also people who work in those environments to be able to say, we're going to lift people up, and we're going to move people and promote people who make our lives better and more pleasant. And we're not going to be bullied and pushed around into moving faster. We're going to move fast because that's what we need to do. Because if we move more quickly, then we treat more patients. And if we treat more patients, then we help more people and we love more people. And that's the foundation. And when you can unite your team around that, then you can move mountains, right? You can change the world if you're doing that. If you motivate your team as a leader out of fear and out of pain and out of avoidance of conflict, then the people will move fast for a little bit, but nobody's going to unite to change the world. And that's what I'm really trying to do.
And I think you're doing a great job at it, Dr. Piefer. I love that you have such a positive attitude about it. And do you find that what you say about those things, that it's received well?
I think it is received very well. I think there are a lot of parallels. We talked about kind of parallels between trauma and physical orthopedic trauma. There are a lot of parallels between leadership in high pressure, high stakes environments like the OR and outside in the boardroom, in business, in families, right? And a lot of what I say is if there's anybody in your life who relies on the decisions that you make, then you're in a high pressure leadership position. So if you're a mom, a dad, a brother or sister, a parent, any of these things, and you're in those leadership roles, it's high pressure and it's high stakes. And if you can found that high pressure, high stakes leadership on love, then you're going to be able to move in a way that other leaders can't. And you'll have teams move and ultimately maybe they ignore you and laugh at you in the beginning and say, why is this guy talking about love or whatever it is? But ultimately when they turn around and look again, and you're this far out into the ahead, they say, oh, well, maybe he or she did get something right. And maybe this is the way we should be doing it.
Yeah. And I got to believe that when you're saying these things, you're sowing seeds and you're putting it out there. And somebody's catching something, even if it doesn't seem like it. That seed is still being planted. And I think that's amazing and beautiful and hits all the right places, whether they agree or acknowledge it at the time or not. But you're doing such amazing work in that area. And you mentioned that, you get to do the podcast for fun. So why did you start? It's called Slice of Piefer. And you guys, I'll put it in the show notes. You have to listen to it. And by the way, I have it marked on Defiance of Silence as one of my favorite podcasts. There's a little host area. So I do have that there. And it is a lot of fun. So what prompted you initially to start it? And tell me about that.
It was a little bit of a kind of harebrained idea and a joke with Taylor and working with our marketing people. And we said, oh, we're going to do a podcast. And then I don't know. I was just like, well, what if we do it? What if we did something and we didn't really care if people listened? Like if we just go and talk about the things we want to talk about and we humanize a little bit medicine, because I found that a lot of people think orthopedic surgeons and surgeons in general are kind of maybe not untouchable, but they're like not somebody who's going to share something personal or funny or recognize something about somebody else. And so I was like, let's just do it. And Taylor was like, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? And I was like, I don't know, but if the squeeze is fun, then we'll just do that.
That's what I say.
Yep.
That's what I say. And it has been fun. And I remember running into you in the hallway and you're like, I'm starting a podcast. I'm like, me too.
Yep.
What do you know? And it has been a great joy to do this. And it's been a great joy to watch you in this new role. If you haven't, tell me the name of your Instagram. I want to get it right.
Yep. It's Jason Piefer. We switched everything to just my name, Jason Piefer. So it used to be Piefer Bone and Joint, Piefer Bone _joint, but it was too hard to figure out. And so we just said it's just at Jason Piefer, and that's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's on X, on all of the outlets. So LinkedIn, we started a Pressure and Purpose newsletter on LinkedIn. So
awesome.
if you're a LinkedIn person, then we put a lot of that stuff on there. Most of the funny stuff, me dancing and pretending like I'm Kim Kardashian, that stuff's on Instagram and Facebook.
So your Instagram, it gets me in stitches. It's really funny. You guys are just, if we mentioned Taylor, for the listeners that don't know, Taylor is his physician assistant that works with him in surgery and in the clinic. And she's a powerful woman and a powerful example of what a really amazing assistant can do for a good leader and what a good leader can do for an assistant. And you guys just have a great energy about you. And she's fun and funny. And I have to say that she keeps you humble. And I think she does it on purpose. She's so funny, her one-liners that you guys have. And it's just adorable to watch you guys. But you're both just so intelligent and so smart, and you work well together. And I know, like, she's lucky to have you and you're lucky to have her. So it's nice to
100%.
witness that. Yeah.
I agree. And I think, well, I agree 100%. I'm lucky to have her for sure. She is awesome. And she would be a great guest here too. If you ever get a chance.
I would love to have her. Yeah. If we could talk her into it. She's not really excited about those things sometimes, I think.
Well, let me say this. I think maybe she likes it more than she lets on. But
Taylor, I'm coming for you.
That's right. Anyway, she is awesome. I am super fortunate to have her. I think that she's, just great. And so I try to tell her that as much as I can, as well as the rest of my staff, because we really get a great opportunity to do cool stuff. So
yeah, you guys really do. And before we say see you later, I want to ask you one question. What does podcasting give you that medicine doesn't give you?
I think it gives me a different kind of challenge. It takes me a little bit out of my comfort zone. Like, it's a little bit, if you feel a little uncomfortable on camera, if you feel like, I used to worry about, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do the wrong thing? Those pieces, I think, the podcast gives you some freedom to do that, but it's also out there. Right. And like, there's that moment when you're like, okay, we're going to make it go live. And there's still always that little moment like, ugh,
Yes, I know that feeling.
Like, is it going to be okay? And I think getting to let go of some of that is really, really good. And I think I said it earlier. I like to make people smile. I like to, there's nothing greater in my life than to see my wife smile. Right. I love that. And I think we get a little bit of a chance to do that on the podcast, which is kind of fun. So that's why I like it.
Yeah. And your podcast gives good pie. You gave me a chocolate cream pie, which, by the way, I went home and ate most of it for dinner.
Yes.
It was really good.
That's the shtick. I actually have had an opportunity to send pie to Michigan, to Florida, and today to California and to Las Vegas. So that's
so fun. Cool. Yeah. It's not often that doing a podcast of this particular gravity and this nature, starting Defiance of Silence was, I've talked about it before, just my why and all of that. And it is heavy and it is serious. And I'm trying to find creative outlets and how to have guests on that can teach us a little bit something in the ways of silly, and how do you still heal and do this human experience and come out on the other side. But the news flash is that we don't come out alive. We all are going to end this human experience at some point. And I think we have to have some fun along the way because we're too serious for our own good. And so I'm realizing and I'm learning a lot from this journey. And I 100% resonate with, it's got to be perfect and it's got to be at first. And I was telling poor Justin, can you edit this out and can you change this? I shouldn't have said this. And he taught me something. He's like, no, it's fine. Dear human, this is humans listening to human experience. Like, I don't need to be putting it all together. And since then, I feel like I've gotten a little looser with worrying about those things. And it's given me so much freedom just to have this space. And I'm thankful that you came on and shared it with me today.
Yeah. And I think just knowing, right, that, and I'm not trying to get any last words in, even though I do kind of sound like I might be, but the big thing is give yourself permission to smile and laugh.
It's beautiful.
And just because you smile or laugh doesn't mean that the trauma that you've been through disappears, right? The scars are there, the pain is there, but it doesn't mean that you can't smile, right? But you got to give yourself permission, because a lot of the times that pressure that we feel, my opinion is that it's self-imposed, right? Like, I've been through so much. I'm not going to give myself permission to laugh at that joke or to smile at that thing or to go dance like an idiot on Instagram or whatever it is, right? Do it because you love it. smile because it makes you feel good. You don't need, it's not like we're going to pretend, right? This is not putting on a show for people, but give yourself permission, right? If somebody sends you a, crazy meme and you laugh out loud, you don't want to have to feel guilty about it, right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
smile and have permission to
Yeah.
enjoy life. And so I like that.
I think that's awesome. Laughing is my favorite. I love laughing, but there was a period where I wasn't doing it that much. And I was like, what's going on here? And that really helped to prompt me to find more creative outlets too. Like everything
Sure.
doesn't have to be so serious. So, if you enjoyed Dr. Piefer today, find his Instagram, his YouTube, his podcast. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. And Dr. Piefer, you're just amazing. And I love that you came on and spent the time. I know you're busy and you got to get back to surgery. As we speak, you're probably like, let me out of here. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you. And do you have any last parting words you'd like to leave our guests with before we say goodbye?
So all I would say is love yourself. Val, I love you. You're awesome. We got to go have dinner or something, get together. Definitely not in a working out scenario, because working out for me, my body is still hurting from an F45 workout from like 3 weeks ago. But
I'm so sad that I missed that, but I'm with you.
It would have.
Let's
It
take
made a
chips
lot
and
of people.
salsa.
It made
Chips
a lot
and
of people
salsa.
smile, but that were not me. That was the key. So I was like, this is brutal. But I just love what you're doing. I think this is so awesome, and I am so proud of you just for doing it and for being there and for having the courage to be there. And just know that your listeners, you guys are changing people's lives just by being present and just by defying that silence and letting people know that you're not alone, right?
Yep.
You're never alone. And there's always, the world is better with you here. So find people, reach out, and give people the gift of letting them help you.
Oh, I love that. There's nothing better to say. So I want everybody to give Dr. Piefer a hand. Thank you.
I love it.
I've been waiting to use that.
But you had some other ones. What were the other ones, real quick?
Oh, guys, you got to hear this. Okay. This one, I was going to say, let's welcome Dr. Piefer, everyone, and let's go. But I forgot. Got to do it. Here we are. And I'm sure that you've got some dad jokes.
I do. Horse walked into a bar. Bartender said, "Why the long face?"
I forgot to push it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Before we go, listeners, witnesses, let's just take a moment. Hold loosely what we heard today. If it landed with you, take it. Take what you need. Let go of what you don't need. Palms up. Think of something you can let go of today that's not yours to carry. Deep breath in. Palms to the sky. Let it go. You did it. Thank you, Dr. Piefer.
Thank you. You rock.
Thank you for being here. If this conversation brought up difficult feelings, please take care of yourself in whatever way you need. I welcome you to carry forward what feels steady and release what isn't yours to hold. If additional support would feel helpful, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, a professional, or a resource in your community. Healing is not a straight line, and you do not have to journey this alone. If this space has been meaningful for you, you're welcome to reach out. And if listening quietly is what you need right now, that's enough. You're right where you're supposed to be. Thank you for witnessing with me today. And until next time, remember that you are loved and worthy of being witnessed.